look at that. But otherwise, I will pass over to Nancy. I've slightly stitched Nancy up here by making a deck of slides that she hasn't seen yet, just with a few photos of the site, because I really wanted to show you the amazing site that is Sapgate. So I don't know if you'd rather I can just share it with now and I can explain what I've put up, or Nancy, feel free to ad lib and see what happens.
Shall we just ad lib and
ad lib? Yeah, let's do that. That sounds like a good idea, doesn't it?
We'll just wing it. If it doesn't work, we'll stop. But
great, wing it. That's definitely my kind of vibes. Right, let me just share that screen as well. Just to introduce you, this is Nancy. She is an amazing volunteer / leader / everything person for Sapgate Community Gardens based in Thornton.
Thank you. Just to say, if I'm slightly distracted, it's because there's a load of starlings outside the window and they keep crashing into the window because they're a bit gormless. So that might just distract me. So my name's Nancy and I work with Sapgate Gardens Association. We're based in Bradford, in Thornton, which is about 4 miles outside of the centre of Bradford. It's completely, we're on a very different scale from what Anthony was talking about. And we're just a very small, completely volunteers. We set up about 7 years ago, 2016, and it was a completely bare site. It was, well, not bare, it had been allotments, it was overgrown, the brambles were as big as I am, and it had been dumped. There were bathroom sets, bath, toilet, sink, everything in there, trolleys, all sorts. So a group of people got together with the local councillors and said, let's do something about this. So I would always say the local council have been really, really helpful. When we had those clear up days, they would come the next day or the following Monday and take all the rubbish away. So it was made a really positive statement that we were getting rid of the rubbish and clearing it out. Over those years, what we've done, you can see this is a top path. We've made paths on the area so that you can get through. One of the things we did through COVID was we worked with the community payback team who work with people as an alternative to prison, really. And we got them to lay some paths for us. We bought the materials and we did quite a lot of the grunt work. We couldn't have done that without them because we had teams of sort of 6 or 7 people, 6 people most of the time. And we got the paths put in. A lot of the work that we do, I'll just talk a bit about that as the pictures are coming up. We have one of our volunteers is a graphic designer, so he makes the signs that we've got. So it's got a kind of house style, if you like, which also, it all makes it look very nice and makes it look like it's something that matters to people. The way that we've evolved it over the last few years is that we have regular volunteer days, which is usually a Thursday and the last Saturday of the month, when we say, well, we'll be there, come along and do a bit of work with us. One of the points I think that Anthony made was about people saying, oh, well, I don't know anything about gardening. We just encourage people to come along because as well as the gardening and the weeding, I hate weeding, but there's lots of other things to be done. So we do work with, we do a lot of work with school kids, which I'll talk about in a minute. We make jars of chutney and jams, and so some people do that, and we have the labels made by the same guy. We got a load of Christmas trees when there was a Christmas tree exhibition around the village, and we got the old ones, and then some of the kids made a den. So that is a constantly evolving thing, and this is the den. So people can come along and help with doing all those sorts of things. We wanted to get more people involved, and we also really want it to be something that the children in the area feel connected to. There was a bit of concern about would we get a lot of vandalism, but we don't. But anyway, we said we'd try and get involved with the kids. So we have a regular. It's on a Thursday afternoon now, meeting with children from the primary school. So they walk up from the primary school, and we've got lots of, I don't know what you call them where you live, we call them ginnels and snickets, but like little alleyways through the houses. So the kids really like walking from the school to come to us. I think that's a really positive thing for them. And then they have an hour on the gardens. And the primary school kids, if you need any hard work doing, I would say get them. They work their socks off. So we had some big garden trugs, and we needed compost moving from one side of the site to the other. It's about 1/2 acre, the site, and it's on quite a steep slope. So we put poles through the trucks, filled them with compost, and got the kids moving it up and down the gardens, and they absolutely loved it. We couldn't do that often enough for them. We bought garden gloves for the school kids so that they've all got gloves, so that takes up a while for them to get their gloves on. And we've also bought tools, so kids-sized tools, so that they can do things. They always want to use the biggest spade in the tool shed. They never want to use the kids' tools. So we do that in the summer months. We do that with the school kids. We also have a group of children that come from the secondary school. It's just a very small group, and it's kids who are sort of on the edge of maybe being excluded. They struggle to sit down in school, and when you see them on the gardens, you think there's no way these kids will sit down for 6 hours a day. They come and they just hare around, and they're quite giddy. But I've got a real soft spot for them, and there's a lot of people that sort of slag them off, really, if I can say that. But they're just kids that are they're square pegs in round holes, really. And what we have found, particularly with one of the kids who's really practical, so if we have any benches or anything that need mending, when he first came, we thought we're not letting him near any of the tools. But actually, if you go, here's this tool, this is how you use it, get on and do that, he just works his socks off. You just have to give him the task right at the very beginning of the session, because if there's any loose time, he can't really cope with that. And the other 3 or 4 are also very, they have things that they like to do. So we make sure that they can do those. And we just say to them, you can run around, don't do any damage, don't go off the gardens. Because actually, if what they need to do is run off steam, that's what they need to do. Those 2 groups work really well because we've got a lot of buy-in from the teachers that come with them. We don't do it on our own, if you like. They have to bring some staff with them. But I think that's just really important for those young people, and they're all local, so they have some sense of ownership of the gardens, and we know that they go there out of school time, and we know that they look after it. We get very little vandalism, get bits and pieces, but not very much at all. The gardens, it was a council space, and it took 5 years, I think 4 or 5 years, but it's gradually, we've got a community asset transfer. So the Sapgate Gardens Association is a charity. We're constituted as a charity, and it's been made over to us. So we can't build on it, we can't sell it, we can't use it for our own purposes. It all has to be within the charitable, statements that we've made. And if we ever collapse or decide we can't do it, it will go back to the council, but they can't do anything with it. This picture is one of the community picnics that we've done. We do these, we've done them a few times now. We did one for when it was the Jubilee and one when it was the coronation, because we got some money from the local council to do it. Each time we've had about 120 people that have come, and it's just lovely. The coronation one, it was really nice weather, so it just rained right at the end, just when we wanted everybody to go home so we could take the tents down. It rained. So that's really good. Lots of people, lots of dogs. It's great. And the whole purpose of it for us is to go, let's do something, let's make this space really nice. Somebody in the village is a weaver, and she did some work with the primary school kids doing weaving. She did that during COVID with them. And so you can see these circles that we've got here. She donated them to the gardens, and we had them as kind of things to stop the birds from eating the berries. It didn't work, but it looked quite nice. And we'd like to do a bit more work with her. And we do have a tool shed and a bit of a messy area, as you can see in this slide, of which we're extending. We also have a lock-up store in a different place completely, where we keep anything valuable. All the tools that are in this shed have been donated, and they don't get stolen, but they sometimes get borrowed, and you'll find that something's gone and then it comes back, and people leave us stuff there. So you just find some random things, like all the bins, all these plastic. I don't know why they think we need plastic bins, but anyway, people leave them for us and we find something to do with them. So I quite like that I know that I'll turn up tomorrow and there'll be various things left there. And yeah, all these tools have come where people have gone, oh, I've got too many, or I'm clearing out my dad's house and he had a load of tools. So that's really good. what else would you need to know? It's never closed. It's completely open space. It's got 2 rights of way through it. Sometimes some of the neighbours ask us if we can put gates on because there are people there in the evenings, but we can't. That's one thing we're just not allowed to do, and we don't want to, because we really want people to enjoy it. And people are going to go. People have got to go somewhere, haven't they? Really, and why would you not go to a beautiful space and sit there in the sunshine and have a drink? Really, so that's what they do. So we just sometimes, generally, the neighbours are really, really positive about what we do. Just sometimes they get a bit twitchy, but we're working on that. Some of the problems that we talked about COVID. It was really busy during COVID because it was a space that people could go to. A lot of the houses here are back-to-backs or terraces with no garden. So people would go there because it was a space that they could go to. And that certainly one of the parents was saying to me that he liked going there because he was finding homeschooling quite stressful after a bit. And he said it was good because he could sit on the bench. He knew the kids were safe. They could run around and they all had a bit of space from each other. But he just said that was really a really positive experience. And during COVID, lots of people came, and just because you could be there, you could have a bit of space, you could do things and still feel connected. Echoes what other people have said. Our volunteers have dropped off. The regular volunteers that go, we've all got other, I'm back cycling again. People are going away. People are doing other things. So we have got a bit of a head scratch, really, because the people who are the main, oh God, that's another daft starlings just bounced off the window. The main volunteers were all retired. So although we're all very fit and healthy, obviously, but we do need another generation of people to come up, but we'll have to work on that. We are doing some work with the Volunteer Bureau, and they've referred quite a few people, a lot of people with anxiety, which again has increased since COVID, and that's worked really well. But we always say that if somebody needs support, so we've got a guy with learning disabilities who comes, and he does need a support worker with him. So he has to bring that support worker, because we're not support workers, we're not DBS checked, although quite a lot of us are ex-teachers, ex-social workers, all that kind of thing. So, but he came. Now he doesn't actually need his support worker with him because he knows what he's doing, he knows us, and he's quite settled into it. And we're doing a bit of work with the Volunteer Bureau around refugees and asylum seekers, and we're going to have a picnic in a couple of weeks when it's Refugee Week. We'd really like to get involved with kind of social prescribing and being seen as an option for people, but it's just getting the balance of, if we have an idea, it's like, that's a great idea, but who's going to do it, really? And we've all got a lot on. It's an absolutely beautiful space right in the middle of the village. I'll shut up in a minute, but we've got fruit and veg that grow. We always say, help yourselves to fruit and veg when it's ready. We give it away to people. We encourage them to take it. We always say to the kids, don't take anything if unless you know exactly what it is, but come and pick the apples, and that's really good. Come and dig the potatoes, which is my favourite activity. It's digging up the potatoes, and the kids really like doing that because it's what could be more exciting than doing that. So we discovered that loads of the kids really like gooseberries because you don't really get gooseberries in the shops anymore. So they were trying them and they were like, these are amazing. They taste like kiwi fruit. It's kind of sign of the times, really, isn't it? We never had kiwi fruit when I was a kid, but that was what they were more familiar with. So I like all that side of things, and I like the fact that we have the choir on it in the winter. We have kids sledging it when it's snowed. It's just lovely. So that's a bit of a ramble through. Any questions?
Thank you so much, Nancy. I just wanted to reiterate how much of a beautiful space it is. I've only been able to be a few times, and whenever we've been there, it's been cold and a bit wintry, but it's just stunning. I was just going to put in the chat, as part of a past project called Nature's Way, we created a tiny little mini documentary about Sapgate Gardens, which gives you a bit of a better idea of the space. That's on YouTube. I've just chucked that in the chat. And before we go on to questions, here is also Sapgate Community Gardens Facebook page, so you can get a bit more information about what's going on. If you're ever in the Bradford area, I'd highly recommend a visit.
Anyway. And you can pass on my email address, and people.
Yes, I'll do that now. Great.
And we are just about in the next 2 weeks to launch a website as well. launch, like open it or whatever you do with a website.
Does anyone have any questions or comments for Nancy?